Hi, everyone. I am your host, Patrice Campbell-Small.
And I am your co host, Hilary Small. Welcome to Career Talk, where your dreams and aspirations matter.
Today, we are pleased to have in our midst well-renowned epidemiologist of Australia, Dr. Stephanie Fletcher-Lartey. Dr. Fletcher-Lartey has worked in the field of health for many years. Today, she is here to share her incredible journey with us as we celebrate Career Day at Bamboo Primary and Junior High. Welcome, Dr. Stephanie Fletcher-Lartey.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, Dr. Lartey. Dr. Fletcher-Lartey, you attended Bamboo All Age and grew up in the community of Clayground. Tell us a little about your journey. How did you make it from a rural community in Bamboo, Jamaica, to land some of the most professional roles in Australia?
The road to
Wow.
success is the road.
Thank you. Well, as you know, I grew up in Playground in Bamboo, Saint Ann district. I went to Bamboo All Age. It was at the time between 1980 to 1987 when I went past my common entrance and went to St. Hilda's High School. Growing up in Bamboo was, very humble beginnings. And I got a scholarship when I was 17 years old to be trained as a public health inspector at the West Indies School of Public Health. And this is where my career really started. I I remember when I started out, I was working at the library in Settons Bay, and one of my colleagues said to me one day, um, that they admired my personality, like I was a really outgoing person, but he also thought that I was bright, how we say it in Jamaica. I was a
Yes,
bright young
yes.
lady and I had a very warm personality, and he thought that the public health field would suit me very well because it required a lot of people skills. And so serendipitously, a couple months later, one of the ladies she was clipping newspapers and she found an ad for the Public Health Training College, and pretty much the rest is history. I got trained between 1990. Um, I started my training in 1994 and I finished in 97. And to be very honest, my public health training really laid a very strong foundation for my professional career, because of the analytical skills, investigative skills, the writing and reporting skills. So I had a very strong foundation. And, by God's grace, I was really blessed to go up the ranks in my profession as a public health inspector in Jamaica fairly quickly. After 14 years, I was already the top of the regional health, environmental health. I was a regional environmental health officer. And it was during that time that I won a scholarship to one of the prestigious universities in Australia to undertake doctoral studies. So I came to Australia in 2009 as a PhD student. And I believe it was just my steps were really directed here. I got to Australia and I knew without a shadow of a doubt, this is the place where I needed to be. And, but as I said, I really credit my foundation in public health, the training, the experiences, working not only in Jamaica, but also in the Caribbean region. I had the privilege of working at the Caribbean Epidemiology Center twice before I left Jamaica when I did my internship there during my master's training. And then they also requested my presence to come back a year later to head up a regional study that was looking at the burden of disease across the Caribbean. And that role really was what exposed me to international work and gave me a taste of what it was like working in these really large organizations. And my boss at the time, who is now currently the head of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, said to me, Stephanie, with your kind of talent and skills, you need something behind your name. You need something behind your name. As a female from a small island developing state with all the skills and the abilities you have, without a PhD, nobody's going to take you seriously because this is the way the world was working at the time. And she encouraged me, and that's how I started to explore opportunities to do a PhD. And as I said before, a year later, I was offered the International Research Scholarship to undertake a doctoral studies at the University of Technology, Sydney.
Wow, amazing, 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 Dr. Lartey. Dr. Lartey, you are an accomplished researcher and epidemiologist. What does an epidemiologist do? Because many of the children might be wondering, it's such a big name. What does an epidemiologist do? And what are some of the qualifications that they would need to become an epidemiologist should they choose that field?
An epidemiologist is basically someone who studies how often diseases occur in different groups of people and why. So epidemiological information is often the data that is collected and distributed that tells you about the different patterns of diseases, who is affected, how, where, and why. And so the role of the epidemiologist is to really help other health professionals to understand the data that they're collecting, to make sense of it so that they can use that information to plan and evaluate the different strategies that they put in to prevent or control diseases, and also to guide the way how you manage the patients, for example, right? So let me give you a quick example. Most people would, for those who have been around, for example, during the COVID pandemic, they would have seen sometimes someone would have come on the TV or on the news and they would give you the report on how many cases we have, break it down by male and female, how many children are affected, and the symptoms of the disease and how long it's been happening. And sometimes we would do a little graph on the screen and show you what we call the epidemic curve. That is the work of the epidemiologist. So that's the kind of work that we do. Not only do we produce those pretty graphs and charts, though, we also interpret what that information is saying to make sense of, so where's this disease going? And what by understanding that, what actions can we take to either stop the disease, prevent it, or advise about what kind of control measures can be put in place.
Amazing. So what qualifications, Dr. Lartey, would a student need? Just a few. You could name a few.
Okay, so usually an epidemiologist is a senior person in the team. So you can start off anywhere with your basic qualifications in health sciences. So whatever your health, most epidemiologists would already have background in one of the health-related fields, whether you're a nurse or a doctor or a social worker or environmental health officer like myself.
Okay.
And so basically, if you have a first degree in any of the health sciences or health-related qualifications, then you do advanced studies when you would really study epidemiology, biostatistics. It's a lot of mathematics in there, right? It's understanding trends and patterns, rates and ratios. So a lot of maths is involved. Very rarely will you see someone just leave undergraduate and go straight into becoming an epidemiologist, because that experience and that foundational training is really critical for you to be able to interpret the data and make logical recommendations based on those interpretations. So, the health sciences are a great place to start. And I'm a big fan of the environmental health training program. So for those who are really and the benefit of environmental health in Jamaica in particular is because we are one of the few groups around the world. The Jamaican environmental health officers are those who are trained in the Caribbean. We get the foundational training in epidemiology in your undergraduate course as well. So that really sets you up.
Oh, wow. I'm sure that, any child listening today who is, very good in maths and science, this is a field that they can explore. Very good, Dr. Lartey.
The road to success is not always easy. What were some of the challenges or obstacles you had to overcome along the way?
Well, thank you, Hilary. Indeed,
You're
the road to success is often paved with many challenges. I may even dare say that those who succeed are the ones who probably face the biggest challenges. Some of the challenges that I faced as a young girl growing up in a rural village was, of course, the lack of financial resources. My parents didn't have big money. We were very humble people. And so I think the first challenge I had to overcome was to know that even though we didn't have money, that I could actually go to college. I could actually have a college education because nobody in my family before me went to college. I'm going to let that sink in, right? I was the
Yes.
first of my parents' 13 children who went to college, the very first one. And because we just didn't have the money, and I think that for some of my other siblings too, even though they were more than capable of completing a college education, I think they were worried about the fact that we just didn't have the financial resources. And so some of them opted not to go to university because of that. But I was a little bit different. I really had a serious fire in my belly that was really saying to me, there is something more. And if I could dare to believe that God would come through for me. So the financial challenges was number one, but also living in a small community, you have to also overcome that smallness, the limitation of not having an example to follow. You know, there was nobody before me in my family, but also in that time when I was growing up there too, most of the girls in my age group, they would finish high school and kind of just go to work or have a baby or something like that. There weren't many people who were heading outside and going to college at the time. So one of the challenge was the lack of role models to follow. And then
Yes.
the other challenge was, well, you get out of there and you've studied and you've got qualified. There are other challenges that we face. It's probably not as obvious as back then. But as a young female in a male dominated profession at the time, I was only the third female to be employed in my field, in my area, where in St. Mary, when I went there. In fact, I was the second one. There was only one other female there ahead of me, and that was difficult. It was basically about 20 men to two females. And you can only imagine and I was young. When I started out, I was only 20 years old. So that was a very young, very, very young me. And the job itself involved a lot of forward-facing interaction with the community. You had to speak to older people in positions of authority. I had to
Yes.
rub shoulders with the politicians and butchers and community leaders
Right.
and as a 20-year-old, you know, that could often be very daunting. And people used to often try to intimidate me because I was so young. But thank God I had I was built I was built strong. So you know, But then it didn't stop there. Not very long after I started, more females began to come. And then now it was the competition between the women. You know, it was all the women seeking for attention. And, you know, I was a very hardworking person. I was very focused and quite driven to do well in my role, not because I was seeking for anything, but it's just my nature to do well. I'm a person of an excellent spirit. And there were people who were not necessarily like me, who were quite contented to just show up to work and collect the money. And my very presence was quite a big threat to some people. And then the last thing I would say was then, you know, back in those days, we didn't have some of the very strong rules and governance that we have now around sexual harassment. We
Yes.
experience a lot of sexual harassment in the workplace as a young female. You know, men just assumed that because you wore a dress, they had the right to touch you or to make sexual related type conversations with you, unwanted and unwelcomed conversations. These are some of the struggles and the challenges. And later on, I think as the years went by, then the struggles, some of the initial struggles continue to happen, but then it was also to climb up the so-called professional ladder. Now there was competition. And so it's about, you know, how do you stand out in a field when there is such a high demand and there's such high competition. And for me, it was really about staying true to my core values and knowing
Yes.
that promotion did not come from people, but that it really came from God. And when it was my time, it would happen. And I was very happy and contented for that to happen.
Amazing, amazing. Lots of challenges, but you overcame. Awesome.
Dr. Lartey, what would you say are some of your greatest accomplishments today?
Please, can you just repeat that last question?
Repeat.
Dr. Lartey, what would you say are some of your greatest accomplishments today?
Wow. Greatest accomplishments. I have a few. I think, firstly, as I said, being the first child in my family to complete a college education is something really important because sometimes we feel afraid because nobody else has done it before, and it's difficult. You know, you're the first one. What if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? And remember, we didn't have money. It was like one day at a time. Sweet Jesus. You know, there was no
Yes.
there was no trust fund or any rich uncle or rich relative. It was one day at a time. And that's really, you know, for me to be able to do that and to persevere and to finish, that was
Yes.
probably my biggest achievement up front. Secondly, to be able to remain true to my values and never selling out. Working as a public health inspector in Jamaica, there were lots of temptations to do the wrong thing. Because we were people who enforced regulations, there were lots of people who had reasons to cut corners. And I have been offered bribes in the past. People have tried to bribe me, and I can put my hand on my heart and say I've never, ever once yielded the temptation of compromising my standards. Number three, greatest accomplishments now as a professional established. I believe one of my greatest accomplishments was becoming one of the youngest female leaders in the public health space in Jamaica. I was pretty much the second, basically youngest female leader to ever attain the position of regional environmental health officer in the whole country of Jamaica.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And I was also the very first one who
Awesome.
who basically graduated with a doctorate. I'm the first female public health inspector in the entire Jamaica who
Wow.
completed, done, complete a doctorate degree from the entire country of Jamaica in my profession. I was the very first one, right? And my accomplishments since I've completed my doctoral studies, they're extensive. But one of the greatest achievements that I could say is being able to work internationally as
Yes.
a well sought after voice by international organizations to lead emergency responses and to support governments around the world. One of the things that I really would say I'm really, really grateful and thankful for was a privilege to come back to the Caribbean region just only a fortnight before the COVID-19 pandemic started, and had the privilege of leading the entire Caribbean response to the COVID-19 pandemic. For me to be on Caribbean soil and being in that position, advising 26 governments around the world,
Wow.
providing them cutting edge, on time advice on what next best step to take in terms of managing and preparing and responding to the pandemic for me is such a great honor that it's something that I will never ever forget for the rest of my life, that I was the one that God chose to be there at that particular time so that I could be there to lead not only my home country, but all the other countries in the region. And they have basically come forth as one of the top regions in the world in terms of how we managed one of the greatest disasters that the world has ever seen in our generation. So I've published a lot of papers. I've published more than 60 plus journal articles in scientific journals. I've published 3 books. But I believe that the service that I give to humanity is one of my greatest achievements.
Oh, absolutely amazing. Just sitting here and listening to you, I've always admired you, but just listening to the accomplishments and to know just how humble you are with it, Dr. Fletcher-Lartey, I am truly, truly inspired by you. I know you know that, but I want to tell you again, you really inspire me. And to know that you put God at the highest point in your life. He's the one who leads and directs you. You've never done anything and taken the glory, but you've always given him the glory. You've always given him the praise. And I really appreciate that about you, Dr. Lartey. Just to know that young boys and girls all around the world can dream big because, as you said, one of the greatest challenges was knowing that your parents didn't have it, but you didn't allow that to stop you. And just look at where you are today. It's a testament that, when you have the will and the drive, you can really make it. Dr. Lartey, you have so many roles and responsibilities. You are an accomplished author, a pastor, a singer, songwriter, life coach, epidemiologist who communicates with top government officials all around the world. You're a wife, you're a mother. Recently, you have landed a role as an associate professor with the University of Sydney, just to name a few, because I know there are so many other caps that you wear. Dr. Lartey, how do you manage to maintain a balance with, just all of this and still find time for you and for relaxation? How do you do all of that?
Wow, how do I find time? To be honest, there is really a bit of a strategy behind it. But before I really share my strategy, I really want to let you know that sometimes people ask this question and they think, how is it possible? When you are doing what you're called to do, when you're walking in your calling, when you are completely aligned with your purpose, that takes the worry and the stress out of what you do. So everything that I do with all these multiple hats that I wear, I believe that I'm doing what I'm called to do. So let's start there first. Now, how do I balance? What I do is I don't segment my life. So I don't put things into, oh, today I'm a professor, or tomorrow I'm a mom, or today I'm a pastor, or today I'm a life coach.
Yes.
Everything is me. And so
Wow.
there is a time for everything in my life. So I'm very careful and deliberate about planning. I am a planner. I plan things out and I schedule things in my diary so that I don't get overwhelmed and that I don't leave things undone. So, for example, if you want to talk to me or have a conversation with me now, I might send you a link to book some time in my calendar, because that means I know that this time has been allocated to Patrice, and I'm not scheduling something else for that. It really comes down to careful planning, right?
Yes.
It's about arranging things. If there's something that cannot be done today, then it has to go for another time. But it's about knowing what needs to happen and also really aligning myself with what needs to be done, because I don't just do anything and everything. So it's about making sure you have a plan and sticking to your plan. It doesn't mean
Yes.
that I don't have flexible room. I do have room for flexibility in my day, right? So, contrary to common belief, I don't plan every single hour of my day. There is space in my day for, fun or for rest. There's
Yes.
space, but it's about being really, really super intentional about how I spend my time. But the one thing I don't do is I don't waste time. I do not
Wow.
waste my time. I don't have time to sit down and gossip. I very rarely watch TV because there's really nothing there that really if I watch TV, it's because I want to, and I will maybe sit down and watch something with my child, to spend time with him, watching the TV and so on. And I might occasionally will take my son to the movies. Um, but that's not wasted time. That's me spending quality time with my child, right? So I'm very intentional about the way I spend my time. And I don't just go to people's house just to go for a visit, right?
No.
Right? I don't just come to sit down because I have nothing to do. And, for example, you might see on my social media channel, you might see me um, do a live stream from my car, because that 1 hour I'm driving to work and I'm stuck in traffic, I'm using my time. So it's been really deliberate and very intentional about how I spend my time. So, for example, one of the things that I do in my spare time, like, for example, when I'm driving to work, I listen to training videos, podcasts, or I motivate people in that downtime, so that it's not wasted of me just sitting there in traffic for 2 hours, but I use it. So, you know, and when I'm at work as well, I'm very organized in terms of how I structure my day, what needs to be done, and I get the stuff that are really important to be done first. And then the
Yeah.
other things I do them afterwards. So it's about planning, organizing, and being really intentional about how you spend your time.
Amazing. Amazing. Thanks so much, Dr. Lartey.
What encouragement what encouragement would you give to young boys and girls of Bamboo Primary like myself who have big dreams and may not be sure of how to make these dreams a reality?
What encouragement can I give to young people who have big dreams and are not quite sure? Thank you so much, Hilary. I'd love to tell you. Well, the first thing I would love to encourage young people to do is, number one, believe in yourself, that it's possible, right? You must believe that you must have a dream, have a vision for your life. Believe that you were created for a purpose, and that if you were created for that purpose, then it means it is possible. That's number one. So first thing, You must believe that the one who created you placed a purpose inside of you. Because if you don't believe that, then you will just wake up and just roll with the punches and flow and just, do whatever life throws at you. But you can choose to live your life by design and not by default, right? What do I mean by that? I mean that every single one of us has a seed that was planted in us when we were created. God already prepared a purpose for each of us. It is our job, though, to go and find out what that purpose is, because it's not always very clear. And sometimes, our parents might tell us what to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they know or understand what our purpose is either. So you have that first responsibility to yourself to find out, what was I created for? And you can do this by praying. You can ask God questions, but you can also look at, what are you good at? What do you really like? What are your gifts and your talents? What do you excel at? What are you naturally attracted to? So firstly, you have that vision and you really want to find out what your purpose is and align with that vision. And the second thing I'd like to say is focus. Focus. Focus on something. Find something that you are really good at and focus on it. Focus your energy on what you're good at. There is a great adage that a lot of the great speakers will say, where focus goes, energy flows. Whatever you focus on, it grows. So if you want to, anything that you want to achieve or anything you want to do, you must put your focus on it. Because as long as you are focused on it, then your energy and the energy around you will go towards that thing. And that is how you are able to see that thing materialize. Even if you don't know where the resources are coming from, or you may not know how that thing is going to happen, the moment you begin to focus on it, by virtue of your focus, the energy around you will flow in that direction. And what will happen is your energy will begin to attract all the right energies that will help you to accomplish that. Right? So it's really important to focus. For example, if you have your exams coming up and you are busy trying to finish all the games on your tablet and posting on TikTok and so on, then what's going to happen is your game is going to excel. Your TikTok stream is probably going great, but your exams might not do very well. The opposite is also true. If you need to learn something, put your focus on it. And the more you focus on that study or that subject, especially the ones that you are struggling with, if you can focus on that, that topic, whatever it is, before long, you'll begin to have a deeper understanding of what that is. And not only will your knowledge grow, but your skills will also grow. So make sure you have a vision for your life, and then you go and seek out how you can make that vision come to pass by really praying and seeking direction for what your true purpose and your calling is. And then you focus. And part of focus is about taking action. You can't just have it all up here in your head alone. You must take the necessary steps and take the necessary actions that you need to get that task or to see that dream come true. And the moment you start walking in the right direction to do things towards your dream, then it would surprise you that people around you will begin to start coming in alignment. People will start to see that this is where your focus is, and they will almost inadvertently begin to help you, because that is just the way the universe is wired. So that wherever we focus, that's where the energy will flow.
Well said, Dr. Lartey. Thank you so much, Dr. Fletcher-Lartey, for talking with us today and just for encouraging, all of us, including teachers, I'm sure, the students of Bamboo Primary and Junior High, who we want to motivate today to realize that they need to stay focused. You mentioned that they should actually find that thing that they're very good at and then ensure that all their energies are challenged into that. You also reminded them, like Ben Carson, that they should dream big. And I'm happy you said to us that just dreaming alone will not do it. but we have to get up and we have to put the work into it. So thank you so much, Dr. Lartey. I am sure that these children are now motivated to go after their dreams, to go after their goals. And Hillary and I, we want to wish you, on behalf of the entire Bamboo Primary and Junior High School, to wish you and your family all the very best. Once again, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And I believe it was in such an amazing and powerful way. You inspire us, and I know that you will continue to inspire Dr. Lartey. And I cannot say it enough. I am so very proud of you. Thank you so much, Dr. Lartey. God bless.
Thank you, Dr. Lartey.
Thank you so much, Hillary, and a very big hello to all the teachers, the students, the parents, and the communities of Bamboo. It has been my pleasure to share my journey with you, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you again in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lartey. Be blessed.